Continuing our conversation with Larry Bain, chef extraordinaire and entrepreneur since way back. Larry, I wanted to jump right into Nextcourse. That's a group you founded. Tell our listeners what it is and the ramifications for social justice.
Well, I created the organization because I felt there's a tremendous need for people who already recognized the need to have good food in their lives as part of their regular diet, but didn't have the skills to recognize the best food to buy, when to buy it so the price was right, and then how to prepare it in a way that didn't require a lot of time, a lot of technique, a lot of equipment, and of course not very much money.
Okay,
and
makes sense.
Having resource to a lot of the great chefs in San Francisco, I threw them the challenge of creating menus, a full menu with a little salad, a main course, a vegetable, and something special at the end that could be prepared in under 20 minutes, very little equipment, very basic equipment, and for less than $5 a person.
Wow.
And we then started looking for students, and we were embraced by the Sheriff's Department of San Francisco.
Really? Okay.
The sheriff is a tremendous visionary who sees the jail as truly an opportunity for people to rethink their lives, truly rehabilitate themselves, develop some good new habits to replace the habits that got them into jail in the first place. And there's recognition that nutrition was key. More and more science is showing the incredible impact of nutrition on anger management and general good mood maintenance. So they were excited, and we found the population incredibly receptive. Young women, most of them mothers, all of them responsible for feeding, if not just their families, often extended families.
Okay.
A strong desire to bring good food into the house, but a complete lack of knowledge about where to even begin. So the courses are designed to talk a little bit about the importance of nutrition, and then to talk about how to shop, where to shop, when to shop, so you're getting the best food at the best price, and then how to prepare simple and delicious meals. So there's a little bit of talking, there's a little bit of theory, but then there's cooking and eating. And again, so much happens at the table.
Yes.
We're talking about a population that not only hasn't cooked, but hasn't eaten. And when we talk about that population, we could talk about any population. It doesn't matter whether you live in Bayview Hunters Point or Pacific Heights. Sitting down to a home-cooked meal has become a rarity, an exception rather than the rule. And so much stems from that, not only your relationship to your family, but your relationship to the community and the world. So the program continues on in the San Francisco County Jail with the support of the Sheriff's Department. And we also work in neighborhoods with youth. And our program right now is working with youth at Mission High. And it's the really next step for us, where we're partnering with a farm down near Años Nuevos. It's called Pie Ranch, and it's an educational farm. So the youth come from Mission High, travel down to the farm once a month, where they work on the farm, and then they cook food that they've grown, harvested, and then they go back, and there's a couple of classes during the month in their school class on nutrition and gardening and health, and then back to the farm.
So what I'm seeing there is direct social intervention. Instead of waiting till they're in jail and having to teach them, why not try to teach them these skills ahead of time and give them some skills, if I may say, that way perhaps avoiding this whole vicious cycle that we call jail.
I think that it's absolutely essential that we start looking for upstream solutions. We can't just wait and deal with the problem when it's threatening us, literally threatening us. We need to see what are the root causes and what can we do early on, not only in somebody's life, but also in sort of their life cycle. And I think that the work with the youth, and again, I had mentioned to you before, there's this new there's always a new disorder, but this new disorder resonates, and it's called nature deficit disorder. And I think urban youth who don't see a tree or a plant have no idea where their food comes from. There is an alienation and a disconnect that, if not addressed and not ameliorated, can result in all kinds of dysfunctional behavior that can either be just self-destructive or community destructive.
Well, I appreciate the efforts you're making around that. Switching gears though, food from the park. As I understand it, it's focused on the food served in our national parks and our local parks. It's not something I would have intuitively thought about though.
I think that I was struggling with the fact that we've been working on this issue of local and organic and sustainable very hard for 30 years, and we've moved such a small amount.
Yeah.
And even the venues that I was working in, Jardiniere and Acme Chop House, had a very high profile, but they were reaching a very small percentage of the population. Not a lot of food dollars were being impacted. Jardiniere buys maybe $4 million of food a year, and Acme Chop House perhaps $1.5 million, which is not insignificant, but relative to the billions and billions of industrialized food that's moving around the country, less than a drop in the bucket.
Agreed.
So I looked for somebody that moved a lot of food, and the Golden Gate National Park serves 17 million people every year in their various food outlets. People don't appreciate Green's Restaurant, the Cliff House, Louis Crab Shack, are all park properties, as well as the Warming Hut, Chrissy Center. In total, almost 20 food service facilities. They buy a lot of food, and the park, if any place in the world, the national park should be the flagship for good food, good land stewardship that produces good food. Going to a park should be like going to the best spa in the world, where not only is it beautiful and relaxing geographically, but you're actually being fed food that is truly healthy. The national park also sits on our national park, Golden Gate National Park, sits on some beautiful agricultural land up in Marin Headlands. Some of our greatest food, Green Gulch Farm, Rin Sun Farm, Strauss Dairy, all on parkland. And so the park can not only feed people, but it can grow food, and it can actually even grow farmers. I was very inspired by a visit to Cuyahoga National Park in just outside of Cleveland, where they actually have plots that they give to people for a very modest sum if they commit to being organic farmers.
And that's what you mean by growing a farmer, actually getting somebody in who would not ordinarily have thought of it.
Or didn't have access to it. The price of land now, particularly on the edge of urban development, is inaccessible. If you're not born into a farm, or into a lot of money, all the desire and all the skill and talent isn't going to get you a piece of land. But the park has land that is beautifully suited, both geographically, climatically, and culturally, to good agriculture. So that's why my program is called Food from the Parks. It's not just food that you can buy when you go to any one of these great places like the Warming Hut or Green's Restaurant, but the actual food that you can buy that's been grown on parkland. And ultimately, setting up a program where farmers in training can come and work on parkland.
That is truly amazing, listeners. I've got to say, I would never have thought about it, but look how far this idea has gone. I think you are definitely to be commended on it, Larry. It's a job well done.
Well, I have good partners in the park that help me do that.
Well, coming up in the next segment, we'll talk about Larry's next venture, Let's Be Frank, the future of the organic industry, the restaurant industry, and finally, have him answer what really matters. We'll be right back.